Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you listen to this episode 253 of the Tree Talk podcast with myself, Jack Neville, Matt O'Callaghan, the Weekly Observer, and Vale Star. Busy weekend we had last weekend with the senior hurling quarter-finals, the final rounds in the Premier Intermediate, some outstanding games, intermediate and junior, but we're into the knockouts in all the hurling, so we'll go through that to start. We also have a big weekend coming up in football with the quarterfinals in the men's side, and you have the finals in the women's side, and we're also down to the finalists in the Camogie. So low to get through, so stay tuned for that and more.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the Red Brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
As I said in the intro there, Matt, so much to look back on, so much to look forward to. But you will be in Goodison on Saturday morning. Is that something you're looking forward to, or will you be watching with your hands over your eyes to see how everything get on against Bournemouth?
I'd be watching with my hands over my eyes, Jack, because got a bit of a respite there in the last 10 days. Go to Brentford and win comfortably, and then go to Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup and win, and lo and behold, then brought back down to earth with a bang, losing at home to Luton. So, they've lost the 4 home games this season to certainly 3 teams that they should be beating. I'm going over giving my tuppence worth, but with a lot of interpretation, and I'm very, very disappointed with the season so far. I'm very, very disappointed with the way the football club has been run, Jack, to be quite honest. And after over 60 years following him, it has really, really tested my loyalty. But look, Jack,
you will go anywhere, and you could be the
so I'll see it out. I'll just stick with it, But
you could be the
just
missing spark
really looking
in the
forward
stand.
to it. I go once or twice a year, as you know, and Saturday is one of the days set aside in our day to go. So, look, let's hope that I'll bring him luck.
Yeah, that could be. You could be the missing piece, and hopefully there's no bar controversy. Because as a Liverpool fan, I've heard enough of it over the last 3 or 4 days to do me a lifetime. But that's enough.
Well, look, Jack,
enough soccer.
That is simply beyond belief. To me, it questions the whole integrity of the VAR system, and I think it. Look, don't think that I'm a half-converted Liverpool fan or anything. Far from it. But I don't care who's playing, Jack. I want to see fair play.
And I suppose it calls into question that if it's been done wrong at that level with all the money that the people clamouring for it in the GA, maybe you should just take another look and say, let's leave it to human error, and if someone makes a mistake, that's grand without getting the technology involved. But that's plenty soccer for us to get started this weekend.
Please, Jack, but I heard people saying, if we only had VAR. Last Sunday I heard them saying in the Gaelic grounds. I heard it twice actually during my travels around the ground, and lo and behold, what was unfolding across the water, if they only knew about it, God forbid, that we won't see the day where we have Hawkeye. Yeah, it's just about enough, Jack.
Yeah, and Hawkeye, I don't think it's great as is. We've been burned a couple of times as Limerick fans with the Hawkeye, so I don't think we'll be advocating for the VAR anytime soon. But talking about the Gaelic grounds, we'll start there, Matt, with the 2 senior hurling quarter-finals. And before we get into them, I couldn't make it with our own match, but I watched the first game in full and watched the second game back. But as a whole, what did you make of the games? Because watching them, there seemed to be a strange-ish atmosphere in the Gaelic crowds.
Yeah, Jack, basically I was disappointed with the fare that was on offer because I honestly thought that, South Liberties had blazed the trail last year and that they became the first team from Section A to beat a team from Section B to beat a team from Section A. I thought there was, having seen Mungret and Ballybrown in action the previous week, you were with me there in Clahan, and I had high hopes, and that even though I thought at the end of the day that Doon and Patrickswell would win, but I thought that we would have very, very close contest, very, very close contest. But if I can deal with, first of all, and I'll come back to Patrickswell and Ballybrown in a second, but I thought that the intensity in the Doon versus Mungret St. Paul's game was at best mediocre to not being at all, we saw in the first half 26 scores, 13 points apiece. Lovely to watch, Jack. Lovely to watch. Both teams spraying the ball around, some great points being scored. But unfortunately, when it comes to the real business end of the competition, that does not succeed. And it was a question at halftime which of the two teams would find that extra gear or up the tempo that bit. And I was quite confident at that stage that would be the men in red from the east that would do so, because they're so seasoned at this level of the competition. And, all the narrative about all the players being missing, which Fergie O'Loughlin was at pains to play down, and rightly so probably after the game, in that you have to deal with the hand that you have. But they were boosted by the return of Tommy Hayes, who came on just before halftime and got a good, 35-40 minutes under his belt, going into the semi-final now. But look, Doon were the better team in the second half. Like, they had players that they had in tight situations, and we've said it secolorum, like you need big players that can make a difference in a tight situation or when you're in a difficult situation. And with the like of Adam English, he got a very good goal. You had Pat Ryan, Barry Murphy, Donald Coughlin again showing very well, Kevin Maher, Dara Stapleton. They had the forwards. As I said last week, that I thought that they had the forwards that would carry him over the line, and that's the way it was. But again, the defence stood up, even though it is it is a reshape. Eddie Stokes seems to be settling in at centre half back. Cormac Ryan was very good again at cornerback. I thought Owen Fitzgibbon was very good. Now he made way for Tommy Hayes, but he did not come off. He was moved into the corner, and overall, Doon will be happy to get to the semi-final. They will be the first to put their hands up and say that certainly their first half performance would not be near good enough to go anywhere near in the semi-final. But certainly, Jack, they showed in the second half that they had they had something, but. Playing the Piercing in the semi-final is going to be a totally different kettle of fish altogether. But
I suppose there was a case of job done for Doon with all the injuries.
It's job done. Like and they never cease to amaze me this year. They have been written off a couple of times. Written off after the first round, trimming by Kilmallock. Then came back and beat Patrickswell. Written off again after the trimming by Na Piarsaigh, and came back and beat Kildare Palace Kinnery in a hand. And it's like basically what they're doing is they're absolutely getting the optimum out of the resources that are available to them. I'm so full of admiration for what they've done, because other clubs in their circumstances could have wallowed and laid down and said to hell with it, but by God, they're battling and they're still there. And now
Yeah,
the Piershick may be a bridge too far, but certainly, as Fergie O'Loughlin did say that he'd have bitten the hand off you if you told him after the defeat by Kilmallock that you'd get to a county semi-final. But that's where they are. And as I said, I've seen him 4 times, actually, believe it, Jack. And I think that they are on merit. I can't argue with any of the games that they won. I thought they were the better team in those, and
I think for doing,
I saw the defeat to Piershick, and any team, Jack, would have gone away and caved in under it, but they didn't. They bounced straight back up 5 days later and beat Kildare Pallaskinry and didn't beat a hand. So, yeah, look, they're in the semi-final. They're there on merit. You can't argue with it. They were much the better team in the second half. Mungret will have learned from the experience. Looking at the configure, they had lost Patrick Begley after 40 minutes to injury, but looking at the configuration of the Mungret team going forward, I think they're likely to cause difficulties for a lot of teams in Section A in 2024. They're not going to be whipping boys. They're not going to be a pushover. They're a coming team. There's no doubt about it. And last Sunday was another step or another lesson in the learning process for them. And they will take something out of last week's quarterfinal. But at the end of the day, Doon deserved their victory. And it's onwards now to a county semi-final with the Piershick. Now, the second game.
Before you go into the second game there, I'll cut across you and you make some great points there about Doon, and that's 3 wins in a row, and you wouldn't have thought that after the hockey and they got against the Piershick, so they'll bring a bit of confidence into that game. But how important is it that Adam English will be right for that game? Because even though he looked injured for the majority of the contest on Sunday, he was still the main man, the major difference between the two teams, and especially that goal, his pace and directness when others fluffed their line in front of goals. Adam was the man to hit the back of the net, and if they have any chance against the Piershick, he needs to be 100% fit, I think.
Oh, absolutely, Jack. I couldn't agree more. And every time I see him, I become more excited by him. He's just a real huge player for the future. And absolutely fantastic. He's the heartbeat of it, because he's in there around the middle third, but Jack, he's all over the place. And he has the guts, and the goal that he got took guts, Jack, to go on, take it on, and finish it like he did. So like Adam English is a special player, Jack, and that's something that we have known since he was a minor. But very often minors do not transition into senior special players. But by God, he's doing it, and he's doing it in spades. But like as I said already about the experience around him is a big help to him. And I'm talking about the like Pat Ryan, Barry Murphy, Dara Stapleton. Like Dara Stapleton, to me, like what he brings to the team, like is just it's just immense. Like he may not be good for 60 minutes anymore, but by God, while he's on the field, does he give it all, and he's so vastly experienced. But look, I'm delighted that they're in the semi-final, and like they have no doubt at all, I'd say, about the enormity of the task. And of course, like they got a heavy defeat in the third round by the Piershick, Jack. But anyways, as I said, it's going to be a free shot, and like they can give it a right go, and they won't be lacking motivation.
No, they definitely won't. And I wouldn't. You couldn't back against Doom with the form they've shown, even with all the injuries. And Tommy being back is a huge bonus, and maybe they'll have 1 or 2 more back. Then into the second game, you had the battle of the parishioners, Ballybrown versus Patrick Swell. Again, took a while to get going. I thought Patrick Swell were clear at halftime. I think it was 8 points ahead. And then with 5 to play, they were back level, and you were thinking it could go either way. But when you needed them most, Keane Lynch stood up with a goal, Aaron Gallan stood up with a goal, and I think it was John Kirby then got the final goal. So I think that's always the major threat with Patrick Swell, that if those big boys get on song, they're very hard to stop.
Yeah, that's the point, and it was just after half time. There were actually, I think it was 5 ahead at half time, Jack, but they got the first 3 points immediately after the resumption, and it pushed it out to 8 points. And you were saying to yourself, here goes. Normal service is restored for Patrickswell in the quarterfinals, because you must remember they had at the back of their head the defeat they suffered to South Liberties in the quarterfinal last year, the first Section A team to do so. So at 8 points, you were saying to yourself, but Luke O'Connor, Jack, who in my opinion is growing to be a very, very important player and a very, very good player with Ballybrown. He got a very, very good goal, and suddenly it was 5 points. And there were still 25 minutes to go. So, the game was far from over as Ballybrown, but they kept gnawing away at it. And by the 54th minute, Jack, they were level with 6 minutes to go. Now, Ballybrown had fluffed their lines once or twice in that period, which would have, at that stage would have had them ahead. And you just wonder what would have transpired had Ballybrown got the lead on the home straight. It certainly would have instilled certain doubts into Patrickswell, Jack, but you nailed it there at the very start. And I've been saying it all the time about big players. Like Ballybrown were entitled to be rubbing their hands with 6 minutes to go and say, gosh, we have a decent job done on Cian Lynch in containing him. We have a decent job done on Alan Gillan. And lo and behold, Jack, long ball from, I think it was Evan Fitzgerald, right into the edge of the box, sublimely controlled by Cian Lynch. Absolutely. It's worth looking back. I know you've seen it. And he breaks clear and buries the ball in the net. Only special players could do that little cameo play that we saw. Then Jordan Higgins, another player, Jack, that I've been impressed with this year. I think he's coming on leaps and bounds. He laid it on for John Kirby to put 2 goals between them. But they kept the best wine for last, Jack. And Angelan, he was central to it, and he played a delicate 1-2. I think Cian Lynch set him up first, and he played a delicate 1-2 with Calvin Carroll, who'd come on the field. And Jack, talk about thunderbolt into the Ballybrown. It is, that's why he's Hurler of the Year elect. With that absolutely sheer dynamic quality. Now, look, what about Dermot Burns? You're saying the big three. I thought Dermot Burns was the epitome of consistency throughout. But Ballybrown will be disappointed because the result did not truly reflect the effort that they put in. They were much closer to Patrickswell than 3 goals. After Cian Lynch got the goal, Barry Adams, who, by the way, didn't start, nor Andy Cliff didn't start, Barry Adams caught a great ball right on the edge of the square, and he blasted over. How escaped that one, I don't know, but it did. I suppose at the end of the day, it was experience. You had Colin Coughlin having a very big game. You had Aidan O'Connor, and as I said, Luke O'Connor. Josh Adams, I thought, had a fantastic game again. So Josh has been a big, big addition to Ballybrown this year. I know he missed most of last year. So, Ballybrown are coming, Jack, and it's 12 months away, or 10 months away before there'll be a ball poked in the championship again. But you just wonder that they're missing promotion by the whisker every year. You just wonder, is there some hoodoo on them? But perhaps from what I saw in the development of Ballybrown, I think they're a much better team this year, Jack, than they were last year. And if they can maintain that measurable improvement, they will certainly be better equipped for a real go at the Section B next year. And they really they will be pleased with the performance, but not the result. And I think that a 3-goal margin in the finish, it was, you will probably agree from what you saw of the highlights, Jack, that it was rough justice on him.
Yeah, I know, and I watched the game back later on. They were, they Passwell were the better team over the course of the 60, but it wasn't a 3-goal game. But the goals came late on, so that's the difference. But again, it's those big players, Sir Passwell stepping up when needed. I think Ballybrown will still be favourites to come back up next year, even with KP going down and whoever we get coming up. But that's for another day, and we're back down to the same Final Four. And again, that's an issue for another day that we have the same Final Four. I know Liberties were there last year, but 6 out of 7 years. But while Doon and the Piercy, you'd really back the Piercy come through that. We had a brilliant game between Kilmallock and Patrickswell in the group stages. So if we get anything like that in the semi-final, we're in for a treat. And I know he's dwelled in the hurling there for a long while, but it's one game to definitely look forward to, is that semi-final between Patrickswell and Kilmallock.
Oh, sure, Jack. The day we saw it out in Cappamore that day, it was without doubt the best game of the championship. It still is the best game of the championship, possibly the best game in the championship for a couple of years, actually. It was just a fantastic game of hurling that had everything. Loads of passages of good hurling, excellent scores, and real players, big players stepping up and leading the way. Look, it's a game that we can't wait for on the weekend after next, and it's a game that has the capacity, Jack, I think, to showcase everything that's good in Limerick hurling, and will certainly be a microcosm of why Limerick have won 5 of the last 6 All-Irelands. It really is a stick-out game, and Jack, it's a very hard game to call. We're down to the semi-final. We're down to the semi-final. Kilmallock started off like an express train, maybe not as good as the competition went on. But Jack, Patrickswell, they haven't won 20 titles for nothing. And all those 20 titles, Jack, you must remember, have come since 1965 when they won their first. Like, it's a phenomenal record, in 58 years to have won 20 county senior hurling titles. I think, that can be matched anywhere, I would imagine. But Patrickswell, and they've got to be respected for the tradition that they have built up over the last 50 odd years, Oh,
I don't think Kilmallock will take them lightly at all. And that's one for us to look forward to next week, because we do have so much to get through today. So down to our Final Four, not surprising, but definitely looking forward to those pairings. Quickly into the Premier Intermediate Championship, Matt. We are down to the Final Four as well after a hectic enough concluding round. Who were through got the job done against Cappamore to relegate Cappamore at the same time. So we knew Effin were through. They will play Blackrock, who got through by the skin of their teeth. They lost out to Glenrue, but the result in the Bruff Newcastle game meant they edged Newcastle on head-to-head, a game they won by a point back in round 2. So that shows how crucial all the games are in Premier Intermediate. Bruff will play Drumnatlaca in the other semi-final. They're in a fortnight's time. So Effin versus Blackrock, Bruff versus Drumnatlaca. Just quickly, because we've loads to get through, I suppose what you make of the final round, there was that shock, but it still went the script as we thought that the top 3 would go through alongside the winners of Bruff and Newcastle.
Yeah. I certainly didn't anticipate that Glenrue would beat Blackrock, because they were on a poor run. But they do have a very, very strong record against Blackrock. I anticipated that certainly Drumnatlaca would beat Pierce and that Effin would probably beat Cappamore. And so it basically came down to Bruff and Newcastle West. And the thing is, had Newcastle West won, it is Blackrock would have gone out. It was that tight. So your point about the importance of winning the games early on is absolutely so valid, Jack. But I have to remind you, as being a dedicated South Limerick man, there are 5 South Limerick teams in the competition in the 8, and 4 of them are in the semi-final, Jack. But my joy with that is slightly tempered because my own beloved Linroo is not one of them.
The odd one outs. Yeah.
But it gives you an idea of the strength of Hurling in this division at that level. And it has been very, very strong. Actually, in the first year of the Premier Intermediate Championship, 7 out of the 8 teams were from South Limerick. The odd one out was Knockaderry. So to a certain degree, it has been dominated by the South, not always in the finals now, but to a certain degree, because Bruff have won it, Garishballan have won it, Brewery have won it over the years. So it's going. Effin didn't win it. Actually, Effin won the Intermediate Championship. They won the Junior Championship, their first ever adult championship, I think, in 2010. And they backed it up the following year by winning the Intermediate Championship. And not only that, but they went on to win the Munster Clubs Intermediate Championship. And finally lost out in the All-Ireland semi-final to Middletown from Armagh above in Burr. Look, Effin looks strong. But you said it on a number of times in this podcast, Jack. It's very, very hard to beat a team twice in the same championship. Effin have already beaten Blackrock. Drummond and Clacka have already beaten Bruff. So we'll see what will come to pass on Saturday week. But it promises to be some day of hurling. Effin will play Blackrock in Bruff at 2 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, we have Bruff and Drummond and Clacka in Kilmallock. South Limerick will be turning its back to the entire hurling world.
Two games not to be missed on Saturday week in the Premier Intermediate Championship. And while we're on going through the lower grades, we found out our final 2 quarter-finalists in the Intermediate Championship. Now, we already knew Granaballangary and Crokilfinney were into the final 4. Granaballangary completed their campaign with a win, and they are joined at the quarterfinals, as I'm seeing them here. Brewery, who are already finished their campaign, will play Maru Boher, who got through. They lost to Granaballangary, but they got through because of Knockainey's win over St. Kieran's. So our quarterfinalists are Brewery versus Maru Boher and Knockainey versus Hospital Herberstown. Another local derby there. The winner of that game plays Crokilfinney in the semi, and the winner of the other, Brewery Maru Boher, will play Granaballangary in the semi-finals. They're also on that Saturday afternoon. So down to the final 6 in the Intermediate Championship. It'll be final 4 after this weekend. That first one, Brewery Maru Boher, on this Saturday in Clorina, and then on Sunday evening in Knocklong, you have Knockainey versus Hospital Herberstown. Some surprising faces there. Some teams you definitely expected to be
Jack, Maru Boher, they got through by the skin of their teeth. They got through on the head-to-head against St. Kieran's, over St. Kieran's. But you must remember that they were relegated from Premier Intermediate in 2021. And sort of, they were very, very slow in adjusting to their new environs last year. So I'm not surprised at all that we've seen a kick from Maru Boher. Now, Brewery, it's not very long ago since Brewery won the Premier Intermediate Championship, and it's I think it was 2015, and it isn't a million years ago since they won the County Senior Hurling Championship in 2006. But they've been pretty consistent this year in that they have won 4 of their 5 matches. But they did something similar last year, Jack, and surprisingly lost out to Palestine in the quarterfinals. So, on form, Jack, it would look as if it will be Brewery, Jack. But it's one of those things you just can't take for granted. I think now it's very often when you come off a group stage and go into the knockout stage. The knockout stage takes a whole different dynamic, and form can sometimes be misleading, but it would look as if Brewery would have the edge there again. I'm wearing my South Limerick hat again, Jack. 3 of the 4 teams in the quarterfinal are from South Limerick. But the other semi-final is intriguing, and that's going to be on Knocklang on Sunday evening. And unfortunately, I'll miss it, but it'll be a game worth seeing because it's the meeting of Knockany and Hospital Herberstown, and of course, it's the meeting of very, very, very close neighbours, and they're amalgamated at certain underage levels, so that will add a small bit of spice to it. But Knockany will be very, very keen, Jack, to get back. They have just come down from Premier Intermediate, and they'll be very, very keen to get back. Now, they suffered a very heavy defeat, Jack, in the first round of the championship to Granabellangary, but they subsequently went on a 4-match winning run and finished runners-up in the group, which qualified them for the quarterfinals. So that's going to be a very, very interesting game. Now, for them again, Jack, Hospital Herberstown lost their first 3, then won the last 2 against Kilmallock and Knockaderry. So very hard to see, but Knockany certainly would be favourites.
Yeah. Oh, definitely for this weekend. But I think the 2 teams that are in the semi-finals already, like in the senior, are probably that bit ahead. But there's a lot of hurling to be played yet in the intermediate. And there's also a lot of hurling still to be played in the junior. But we are further down the line in the junior championship because we have 3 of the quarterfinals played already. Last night, Mungret St. Paul's beat St. Pat's, and also Kilteely Drumkeen beat Mona Gay. And over the weekend, Feeney Kilmeady beat Drumcolor Broadford. So we have Drum Broadford, Mungret, and Kilteely in the last 4. And all we're waiting this weekend is Caherline versus Mona Gay. That game is on Saturday in Fedamore at 4:30. Now, Caherline were champions 2 years ago. They've won all their games this year, but Mona Gay have only fallen in 1 game. And they played last weekend. That might benefit them that they've had a game. So probably a bit closer than you would expect, but one of Caroline and Mona Gay will round out the quarterfinalists.
Yeah, I did was Kilteely Drumkeen actually beat Crocora Manister last night.
Who did I say?
Mona Gay.
Sorry. Yeah, Kilteely beat Crocora. Sorry. There was just so many teams in my head.
I'll forgive you a lapse, Jack, seeing that your mind might be in another part of the world. But we had Mungret St. Paul's. Mungret St. Paul's beating St. Patrick's. Mungret St. Paul's reaching the semi-final of the Junior A Championship gives you an idea in the strength and depth that is in that club. It's just fantastic, the amount of players that they have coming through. And of course, at the weekend, we had a big West Derby in that one when Feeney Kilmeady defeated Drumcolor Broadford, who were last year's runners-up to St. Kieran's. So basically, there are 5 teams left in contention for the Junior Hurling Championship. And they are Feeney Kilmeady, Kilteely Drumkeen, Mungret St. Paul's, and the winners of Caherline and Mona Gay, who will play in a quarterfinal, who still have to play a quarterfinal. So there's very, very good progress made in that competition, Jack. But I had somebody on the phone to me, and it's remiss of me not to mention it. And I was approached in the Gaelic grounds on Sunday by another individual with the same story about their season ticket holders, and expressing their dismay that there are so many matches on at the same time. On Sunday, we had 2 quarterfinals and we had 4 Premier Intermediate Championship final round, all on at the one time, basically, which they felt was very, very unfair to season ticket holders. And I concur with him. And of course, there's an awful pile up of games again next weekend now, with the split season and the multiplicity of championships and competitions that we have. I get all that. But surely last weekend, the Saturday and Sunday could have been used now. You could be facetious and say, sure, look, if they were on Saturday, they'd have been called off anyway with the bad weather. But, why the intermediate championships? No, there may be a very good reason that I'm not privy to. But but why the intermediate championship games weren't on Saturday and the two senior quarterfinals on Sunday. And I have no doubt that it probably impacted on the crowds at the various venues, because there's an awful cohort of players out there, a cohort of fans and supporters out there that will go to matches every day that they're on. And you know a lot of them, Jack, just like I do. But one of them took time to ring me about it. And I said, look, as I give a standard, I have a stock answer for that, that it's a matter for the county board. And I met somebody at the Gaelic grounds on Sunday who would dearly have loved to have been in Ballygran for Bruff and Newcastle West, but couldn't because the two games were coinciding. So I don't know what the answer is, but certainly when Saturdays and Sundays are available, I think they should be availed of.
Yeah, I suppose it comes down to referees, pitches, etc. So that could have played its part, but it is disappointing. Now I know the final round games have to be on at the same time, so you couldn't have the 4 Premier Community games on a different time. But yeah, Saturday would have been ideal. But maybe if one team couldn't play, you can't have one of them playing on Monday and the rest playing another day, because you could get into, I don't know, logistics and things like that with it. But yeah, it's good to highlight it, and we'll keep highlighting things like that as best we can. But that's the Hurling Championships, the lay of the land in those as we move forward further into knockout stages. We're down to the semi-finals in the senior. We've one semi-finalist left in the junior, and we'll find out semi-finalists, the final 2 in the intermediate this weekend. Moving back to football, Matt, and we're starting off the knockout stages in the football championship, and we'll go straight to the senior, where we have 2 intriguing semi-finals or quarter-finals this weekend. We have Kildimo Palace Kenry against Mona Lean on Sunday in Bruff at 2 o'clock. Firstly on Saturday, Father Casey's versus Napiershik. Starting with that one, Father Casey's will be favourites against the Napiershik side that have done really well since getting promoted. Beat the teams that they would have felt were on their level. Lost out to Napiershik in a dare, but will have learned from those games. And then Father Casey's, the perennial contenders that eventually got over the quarter-final last year, Matt, but have been decimated with people moving abroad, but still are in the quarterfinals. They only lost to Newcastle, and that was their first game. So they've won 4 games in the bounce. So you'll be fancying Casey's to get back to the semi-final for the second year running.
Yeah, Jack. There are many parallels between Father Casey's would be the Doon of football in terms of loss of personnel for different reasons. They've lost an awful lot of players this year. They were unable to field in the intermediate football championship, and I saw them in one of the earlier rounds. I think it was in round 2 against Clahan, Jack, and the team that went out against Clahan that day bore very little resemblance to the team that was beaten in the semi-final in Fina last year by a dare. But they've stuck in there. They've lost big players like Adrian Enright, Cormac Roach, and a couple of more. But they have a couple back, and having lost to Newcastle West, and didn't lose by that much in the opening round despite all their travails. They've picked it up and they've done quite well. I think they've won the other 4. So they are in a pretty strong position, and pretty strong position going into the quarter final. That is, Jack. Were they to win on Saturday, of course, it would be a major boost, and the prize for winning on Saturday will be a repeat of last year's semi-final with a dare. But Napiershik, Jack, they of course will be trying to emulate a dare. If you remember, a dare were relegated in 2015, came back up in 2016. And won the senior in 2017, and now you have Napiershik relegated in 2021, back up in 2022, and they will be looking at the Adair blueprint to see if they can repeat it. Now, I saw Napiershik playing in the championship. I was impressed with them. They had a very good win, and I hate reminding you, Jack. I just honestly hate reminding you this, but they had a very good win in the first round over Ballysteen. But then, as you said, they got a lesson as to what senior football was all about on their return. When they had games against, particularly against the Dare in the second round. When they got a bit of a chastening, and they lost the third round as well. I'm slightly at a loss to know who they lost the third round to.
Monaleen.
Can you help me, Jack? Sorry?
Monaleen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Monaleen. Lost to Monaleen, like who were both in the knockout stages of the competition. And then they had good wins over over Galtee Gales and Ballylanders, which coupled with the win in the first round was enough to see him safely through to the quarter-final. And like that will represent consolidation in their new surroundings for a day for the Piercy. But they won't be happy with that at all, Jack. They will want to move on now. And this is the biggest test that they will have faced, I would imagine. And this is no disrespect to other teams, but it's the biggest test they will have faced since they played Monaleen. And, this is an opportunity to benchmark themselves again with one of the contenders. Because, as you said, for the Cases were perennial contenders, but could not get over the hump of a quarter-final until that all changed last year for the first time, I think, was in nearly 10 years of trying. Going all the way back to 2013, I think, was it? But it
was a long time. They'd lost a lot of quarterfinals in that time.
They had just lost. Quarterfinal day was, quarterfinal was their graveyard. But they got over that last year when they beat Kildima Palace Kenry. I'm going for Father Casey's to win this one, Jack. But I'm going also for the Piercy to give him a right good rattle. And the Piercy, of course, have the advantage, Jack. As a dual senior club, and we said this at the very beginning, that they have the advantage of having a distinct football team. I don't think there's any overlap as such. Not that I know of.
I think some of them play Premier Intermediate, all right, but sure, they're out now, so it'll be...
They play Premier Intermediate, that's over. So they're sort of an independent republic within the club, so I would expect the Piercy to give it a right good rattle, Jack, but I don't think it will be good enough. I think Father Casey's will have that little bit extra that will take them into a semi-final with a Dare, where they will be on a mission of revenge from last year's semi-final. But that's for another day. But I'm siding with Father Casey's on this one.
Yeah, I do agree Casey's will win. But I do think it'll be close again. I think Na Piarsaigh have to start strong, and that seems to be when they've been winning games this year, is when they've started and got ahead. They've been able to hold on to leads. Now I know Kelty nearly reeled them in, but against ourselves and against Ballylanders took an early lead and led from start to finish. Against the Dare and Monaleen, those teams got ahead of them and they couldn't reel that back in. So I think who's ahead after maybe 15 minutes will be the victors in this one. But we'll get into exact predictions in a minute. Just before we do that, the other one then, Kildima Palace Kenry versus Monaleen. Kildima started like a train, 3 wins from 3, but have been hit by successive losses. Now they're gone from the hurling as well. So they have an awful lot of dual players, but they know their season is up, so they can fully focus. And we had Kyle Hayes in midfield the last day from him. I expect he'll be there again this weekend. Monaleen, similarly, have a very little turnover, but the couple they do will be able to play now. Monaleen's season, Premier Intermediate, finished. I know Mark O'Dwyer picked up an injury against Mungard in the hurling maybe 3 weeks ago. If he's back, he's a huge bonus to him. From what I'm seeing, I saw Monaleen up close and personal this year. I thought they were a very polished team. You were there that night. Very physical, but are able to take their scores. Have some nice forwards. Daniel Daly was brilliant that night. Obviously, you have Dara Murray, Ger Collins, Brian Donovan. These lads that can get a score. Luke Murphy from deep. So for me, they're the more well-rounded team. but Kildare Pallaskenry have upset the odds so much in recent years in both codes. You just couldn't rule them out, taking another huge step and breaking new ground and getting to senior football semi-final.
No, Jack, you can't rule Kildare Pallaskenry out of anything. And the thing is that what you said there, they now can fully focus that their hurling season is over. They've had they've had known their faith in the senior hurling championships even before the final round. So they've had 3 or 4 weeks to put all their eggs in the football basket. So there are doubts about Carl Downs, although I think he played in the last hurling game that he had picked up a knock. And Carl Downs, is very, very central, Jack, to Kildamo's. He's been a powerhouse around midfield, and of course the free scoring Peter Nash. We cannot, I think is he the leading scorer in the championship at the moment, or certainly one of them. So like they have plenty in their armory now. I saw Kildare Pallaskenry, I think it was round 3 against St. Kieran's, and I thought I was very, very impressed by him. And they won comfortably that evening. Now I've seen Monaleen a couple of times. I saw them in their win over Ballysteen. I thought that was a fierce, competent performance, and I thought it was a statement performance by Monaleen that they're serious contenders. I saw them later in the competition against Galtee Gales, and they further enhanced, if anything, that statement and enhanced my belief, that they're serious contenders, and they're real big players, and they have been boosted by a couple of lads from Kerry, which are beginning to make a big difference. There's the 2 Shukros, Darrow Shukru, corner forward, and Ty Shukru at centre forward in key positions. And beginning to make their presence felt, and along with the names that you have already mentioned, I think that Monaleen are very, very strong contenders, and I've arrived at that conclusion since the night in Ballingarry when they beat Ballysteen, that they're very, very strong contenders for outright success in this competition. Jack, they're quite capable of doing it. Darren Murray is in fantastic form. Luke Murphy is an inter-county man, playing fantastic, as you said, from the back. And you have the like of Brian Donovan and others there, your man Daly at full forward. They're fantastic, absolutely. I think they're serious contenders, and I think they will have too much for Kildare Pallaskenry. But I suppose if there was to be a surprise in any of the quarterfinals, Jack, I suppose the more likely would be that Kildare Pallaskenry may be the ones that would cause it. But I think that for the second year in a row, it's just simply fantastic. Like they were only intermediate champions in 2021. They reached the quarterfinal last year, and we were saying at the outset of the competition like that. We had fears for Kildare Pallaskenry in football, in that of all the dual clubs that were in the competition, they had a greater crossover with hurling than any, we'll say, than the Piershick or Adair, or but by God, at football they certainly knuckled down, and not a trace of a second-year syndrome. Had qualified for the quarterfinals with 2 games to spare. So they are to be respected, but you would have to say that they really got 2 very, very good tests in the concluding stages of the competition against Newcastle West and Father Casey's and Newcastle West, which will have to stand them, Jack, in good stead going forward into Saturday's quarterfinal. Actually Sunday. It's Sunday at 1:00 in Rough, Jack. I think the game has been changed to 1. I have a feeling that Monaleen will just, they know how to win games at this stage. They're another of the dual senior clubs, and you touched on it there about Marco Dwyer. but Larkin Lyons returned for the last game against Galtee Gales, and I thought had a huge game for Monaleen. And the talk is now that Donegal O'Dally could be available, who is also a very good footballer, now Ireland medal winner with Limerick this year, and that he may be on board for the quarter final. So, and were Marco Dwyer to be fit, it would be another huge boost. So, I think Monaleen have strength, and they've strength and depth, and I'm going for them. I think that they will have too much for Kildimo Palestine.
Yeah, I agree. I'll get your. Just before we go up in the senior football continental table, relegation final this Saturday in Capmore, 4 o'clock. Your own Belllanders against Clahan. These games take on life of their own. So without going into too much, how do you see this one? Don't have to give a prediction, but how do you see this one playing out? Obviously, Belllanders were in the position last year and survived. Can they do it again?
Can I pass, Jack?
You can pass. I'll talk about the game if you want, because for me,
no. Seriously,
I'll
take the question head on. There can be no argument about why they're there. Neither side won a football match in the group stages, and you can't argue that they deserve to be there. Now, Ballylanders had 1 or 2 very near misses in the opening rounds. They lost by a point to Galtee Gales. They lost by 2 points to Monaleen. That's swings and roundabouts, narrow margins. Had they won the 2 of those, we could be talking about a different narrative. But I thought as the competition progressed, that they regressed. Now they scored 117 against Palestine and failed to win the football match, conceded 6 goals. They scored 2-5 against Adair, which is only 7 scores, and against Napier, Jack, very, very alarmingly, they could only register 6 points in 60 minutes of football, which is paltry. Now, Clahan have been on the receiving end of 5 straight defeats as well. They have been tenants or members of the senior football fraternity since 2019, when they were promoted as intermediate champions. Actually, Jack, a little coincidence, in their first game up in senior football, they beat Ballylanders in Bruff by a point. But I'm not looking for omens.
Yeah.
I'm very low to pick a favourite in this one. But seeing that you asked me, I have to, because I'm very conscious of what happened in the senior hurling relegation playoff. And as you rightly said, they're games that take on a life of their own. And certainly, if any game took on a life of its own, it was South Liberty's huge win over Garrisballan when they scored 7 goals. And maybe Ballylanders are keeping the scores for Saturday. It's on in Capmore at 4 o'clock. It's going to be tense. Ballylanders have the experience of being through relegation final as recently as last year. Back 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, they were through another relegation final when they beat Palace Green in Martinstown. But it's a dubious honour to have experience of relegation playoffs, but it must be worth something. I'm going for Bally just to shade it, Jack.
Yeah, from what I've seen of Ballylanders this year, I think they were very unlucky. I saw them that first day against Galtee. They were very unlucky that day, only for the Childs brothers. And we did say how important those earlier round games could be, and that's a perfect example of it. And I saw Clahan a couple of times. I was a bit let down by them. So on form, I go Ballylanders, but as you said, you mentioned that Garrisballan, South Liberty's game. We both called a Garrisballan win, so that could be a bad omen for Ballylanders. But that's on this Saturday, and the race to replace whoever goes down really kicks into overdrive then this weekend, with Rakiel versus Galway and Drumrod versus St. Pat's, with Mungret and St. Senan's waiting semi-finals. Well, I'll get your snaps on those when we get into predictions. But 2 huge games in the Gaelic Crowns this Sunday, Matt, in the Ladies Football Championship, that we have the senior and intermediate finals. Now, I'm aware we're really approaching the hour quickly, so we'll get through these. But the senior final, Monaghan versus St. Ailbe's, same as last year. St. Ailbe's just got past Ballylanders. Monaghan had to wait that week extra to play Ula. That game was originally called off, but won 10-3 against an Ula side that had been the farm team in the competition. But so it's unsurprising to see Monaghan and St. Ailbe's back in the final. But do you give the edge to the team looking for 3 in a row, or to St. Ailbe's, who I think were the last team to beat Monaghan in the championship?
You're right, Jack. They beat him in 2020 final in Knockaderry. It's a hard one to call, this one, because you're right. Ula were the surprise team of the championship, and they were sort of the foreign team insofar as that they won their 2 group games, including a win over St. Ailbe's and a second round win over Drumbradford. But it gave them that poison chalice, possibly, which sometimes is a poison chalice, Jack, of a direct route to the semi-final. And actually, they had 5 weeks of competitive inactivity before they played Monaghan, whilst Monaghan in that time were playing, they had to play a quarter-final against Drumbradford, in which they were pushed to the very limit and needed extra time to just edge out Drumbradford. And at the other side, then you had Ailbe's lost to Ula, beat Drumbradford, qualified for the quarter-final, beat Old Mill, and like in the semi-final, Jack, they beat Ballylanders. And like Ballylanders, certainly, Jack, there was good reason for people talking up the chances of Ballylanders this year, because they had a very good group stages. They beat Fiona Castlemahon in the first round, went back to Monaghan, drew with them, then beat Old Mill in the final round, 2 games away from home, and went straight again to the semi-final. But again, it could have been a poison chalice. So like that, as I said, Ailbe's had that extra quarter final with Old Mill. But I think you would have got decent odds, Jack, at the beginning of the competition on a repeat of last year's final. Yes, Monaghan going for 3 in a row. Less so, I would say, and they'll forgive me for saying so, for St. Ailbe's. It's going to be a very, very interesting final, Jack, and Monaghan will start as favourites. There's no doubt at all about that, Jack. But there's a lot of experience in that St. Ailbe's team. They've been hovering around for so long, Jack. It's their 4th final in 5 years, and it must count for something. I certainly wouldn't be writing off St. Ailbe's. Like Monaghan beat him in the final in Bruff last year. I think you were there, and they put out all the stops to do so, because if you remember, they seemed to be quite comfortable early in the first half, and then St. Ailbe's struck before half-time. I think Mairead Kavanagh, who's not on the panel this year, I think, got a great goal before half-time, and it was really game on. Like that, to pull out all the stops, and I think you're going to have a similar game in the Gaelic grounds, and I'm delighted to see that it's on at headquarters. The ladies deserve that to get to to get to play in the biggest stadium in the county on their biggest day. I'm going for Monaghan, Jack, but it's going to be very, very tight.
Yeah, it'll definitely. We'll go to all the predictions in a minute, because obviously the intermediate final is on at 1:00. Marubo versus Celtic Gales, and the senior final is 3:00. So I'll get your synopsis of that game when we go back to predictions.
Can I just talk briefly, Jack, and I will be brief about the intermediate final. Like it's a novel final, and what a success story it is for Celtic Gales, who fielded an adult team for the first time 8 years ago in 2015, to be now on the threshold of senior football. They won a first ever Junior A championship last year with a very big win over a Han in the county final. And here they are in the final against a Maru team that have a record of their own, Jack. A Maru team that haven't won the intermediate championship since 2014. But in 2014, way back, 9 years ago. Not only did they win the Limerick Championship, but they won the Munster Junior Championship and the All-Ireland Junior Championship. They beat St. Kieran's of Roscommon in the final in Ballinasloe 9 years ago. So it's a novel final, and again you would have got long odds in this one at the start. But Galtee Gaels are going into the final unbeaten, Jack. Maru Boher suffered 2 defeats in the group stages to Mungret St. Paul's and to Knockcaney. But it bears out the point that you've made on a number of times, Jack. Very hard to beat a team a second time in the same championship, because they came back in the semi-final and beat Knockcaney to get a place in the final. This has the ingredients of an intriguing final.
Yeah, it definitely does. That's 1 o'clock in the Gaelic grounds. But just briefly on the Camogie, Matt, where we're into the finals as well in the Senior A, Senior B and Intermediate. I suppose it was business as usual for Newcastle West, 3-15 to 12-point winners over Bruff. But then in the other semi-final, which was a repeat of last year's final, Killeedy 112 to 1-8 winners over Ahan, dethroning the defending champions. Bit of a surprise there, but it means we'll have a Killeedy Newcastle final for the 3rd time in 4 years. Obviously, Newcastle looking to win back the title that they lost last year. Killeedy beat him in 2020. Yeah, 2020 they beat him. So an intriguing All-West final we are there, but it's probably the small bit of a shock that Ahan were beaten.
Yeah, but in 2021 they beat Killeedy, Newcastle West. That was the year Newcastle West and Monaghan did the double. With huge crossover of the same number of players. But I suppose the big story of the day, Jack, has to be, of course, the defeat of Ahan, because they were going so well in the group stages, had huge wins in all their group games over the Piershik, Bruff and Cappamore, and didn't have home venue against Killeedy. But Jack, you can never write off Killeedy. You do so at your peril. They're a deep-rooted club there in West Limerick, very, very strong Camogie tradition there, and they did a lot of the business in the first half. They led by 6 points at halftime, won 7-4 points. Anya Reynolds got a goal in the second half to bring it back to 2 points, and just 2 points right up to the hour mark, actually, Jack, as they try to defend their title. But in injury time, Shauna Cunningham and I can't think who got the second one, but they got 2 points to clinch it out. But it was a surprise, and it sets up a repeat of the 2021 final between near neighbours, Newcastle West and Killeedy. So that is going to be very, very interesting, and it's fixed for Ballygran, Paddy Carroll Park in Ballygran on Sunday week. And it will be preceded that day by the intermediate final. But before I go to the intermediate final, Jack, Adair took another step in their progression, because we saw that in 2021 they won the Junior Championship, 2022 they won the Intermediate Championship, and in 2023 they're just an hour away from winning the Senior B Championship, which will be a very big step in their progression. Now they won the Munster Junior Championship last year and reached the All-Ireland semi-final. So the progression is continuing this year. They beat Cricora in the B semi-finals, whilst in the other semi-final, the Piershig beat Granaballingary. And it is sad to see the decline of a club that has contributed so much to Limerick Camogie, not only on the Limerick stage, but on the provincial and national stage, winning All-Irelands. They have fallen on hard times, and their senior status, Jack, is going to be on the line, because with 2 clubs relegated this year, Cappamore are already relegated. The second team to be relegated will be determined in a playoff between Granaballingary and Cricora, who are the respective losers of the B semi-finals. So that there will be 8 teams lining up in the starting stalls for the Senior Championship next year. That is the rationale behind it, 2 teams being relegated. But sad days for Granny Ballingarry. They already beat Crocora in the final round of the group stages, which compelled Crocora to face Cappamore in the first of the relegation finals, which they won. So now they're faced with a second relegation final. So that's for another day. But we were just talking about the intermediate championship, and the intermediate final this year, Jack, will be between last year's runners-up, Croke Kilfinney, who barely got over, and I mean barely got over, Galbly in the semi-final in Croke on Sunday, and the 2021 runners-up, who lost the final to Cappamore after a replay, Monaleen. Monaleen beat Temple Danton in the semi-final in Monaleen on Sunday. So that will be a very, very, very interesting final. Now, Galbly probably, and you probably have me saying it earlier in this competition, to watch Galbly, and I think they raised a lot of eyebrows, Jack, when they beat Monaleen in the group stages. But unfortunately, they have bowed out. Now, I saw them winning the junior final last year. I was hugely impressed with them. And the fact that they've given intermediate Camogie a right shot this year hasn't surprised me in the least.
Yeah, no, that there should be 3 excellent finals, and then obviously you've that one relegation playoff. But we look forward to those games next weekend as the football
Junior
finals.
B is also down to the finals. The Junior B is also down to the finals, and the Junior B Cup final will be between Tournafulla and Monaleen, and the Junior B plate final will be an all South Limerick affair between Bruff and Kilmallock.
Another South Limerick derby there for you to get stuck into next weekend. But for now, Matt, we'll just before we finish up, we'll focus on the games we have this weekend. So we'll go to predictions, and I didn't warn you in this, but we'll have the 2 senior quarterfinals as always. I'll throw in the 2 intermediate football finals, quarterfinals, sorry, and then I'll throw in the 2 ladies football finals. So we'll go through them, but before we do, we'll go to last week's results. Now, bear in mind we predicted the outcome of 6 games, so for you to get 4 and to be still ahead was Paulshire. We only got 3, both at Patchwell, both at Efford, both at Drummond-Lacca. You had Doon, Mungret, and neither of us foresaw Glenroe beating Blackrock or Bruff beating Newcastle. So you stretched your lead out once again, 6 points clear, but still plenty of finals to get through. The finals don't hold double points or anything, which maybe they should, but that's for another day. But 6 games to look forward to this weekend. We'll start with the men's senior football quarterfinals. Father Casey's versus Napier-Shig.
I'm going by Father Casey's by 3.
Father Casey's by 3. And we both said our piece in the podcast already. I'll have a timestamp here so you'll be able to see why we went for Father Casey's. But I'm joining you with Father Casey's, and I'm going to go Casey's by 5 to get into semi-final for the second year running. Then Monaleen versus KP, which is very, very interesting. Really one to look forward to. But I'm going to go Monaleen by 4 points here to get into a semi-final, to leave the same Final 4 as you had last year.
Well, I had him down for 4 points, but seeing that you're going 4 points, I'll go 3.
Okay. I'll still hold on to my 4 points there. So we both have Monaleen and Casey's to come through those quarterfinals. Then the intermediate, Matt, I'll let you start off here. Rackhill versus Galbly, which is actually a repeat of the 2018 final, the Galbly one. Who will take one step into the quarter semis?
It is, and we didn't talk about it. It's they'll say O'Callaghan is like an old broken record. But Galbly have been the Napier-Shig of this year's Intermediate Football Championship, in that they only played 3 games in the group stages. They got a walkover from Father Casey's. Father Casey's pulled out, and they got a walkover from Castlemahon. So their preparation is far from ideal. Now, they had a very good win over St. Sinnans in the first round, and they subsequently beat Crocora Manister. But then they lost to St. Patrick's in the penultimate round. So I'm going for Rathkeale by 2, Jack.
Rathkeale by 2 to avenge that loss from a few years ago. I'm going to go Galway by 2. Just with the turnover, Gary's playing players, they'll have those lads back now. They'll come in after being relegated, but I think they'll make the boost. And if they can perform like they did against St. Sinnans in the first round, I think they'll have too much. But again, you can't.
Well,
just
my judgment is based on the stop-start nature of the championship, and it's most disappointing. And I'm going to say it once more, Jack, but don't ask me to say it again because people will be fed up of it. Doing nothing about the structure of that football championship, that football competition is not an option.
Yeah, definitely not. I think Premier Intermediate is the way to go with that, but that's for another day. Pats versus Drum, then, Matt, which would have seen in the senior championship for years, but here we have an intermediate quarter final. I'll take the race here. I have a slight edge for Pats for some reason. I know Drum got to the final last year, and they have a really good side, and I know Pats were out last night in the hurling. That won't help, but I'm just going to go with Pats here to win by 2 points against Drum.
I'm going for Drum by 3, and I'm taking cognizance of the fact that they're now out of the football championship. I'm also taking cognizance of the fact that they were beaten in last year's final, and there wasn't 20 years ago, or we'll say at the turn of this millennium, that there was no such thing as a football tradition in Drumcolor, but now there is a very, very strong tradition. 7 county titles in this millennium, senior titles in this millennium. I know you can live in the past, but you can feed off it. And I'm going for Drum to win by 3 points.
Drum by 3. I'm going Pets. So we'll have a different quarterfinalists anyway. There'll be one of us right and wrong. Consider maybe different Jack, there. And then
Jack,
football finals start intermediate.
You have a near record in the quarterfinals of being right.
Yeah, I have. That's one where, well, generally you have such a lead built up at that stage that it's pretty pointless. But I'll be hoping. Well, when neutrals, I don't mind who wins, but I'm hoping to be right in terms of getting closer to you. Then into the ladies' finals, the intermediate, 1 o'clock, Gaelic grounds, Galty Gales versus Maru Boher. Can Galty Gales go back to back, or will Maru Boher return to the senior ranks?
I'm going for the Gales by 2. I think there's real momentum with them. And
Gales by 2.
I'm cautiously going for them by 2. I'm mindful of the fact that, Maru Boher lost a couple of games, but there is greater vulnerability in teams when it's in the group stages than when they're in the knockout stages. And you get to the final for a reason. And certainly Maru Boher are after putting 2 very good back-to-back wins together over St. Bridget's and, as I said, Knockcaney, and have to be respected. But I think there's fierce momentum with Galty Gales because the trajectory has been the one way, Jack, right since the start of the competition. They drew with Bridget's in the first round of the group stage, had a huge win over Father Casey's in the second round. And, Jack, they will be really battle-hardened by having 2 semi-finals. Like they drew with Mungret St. Paul's, 1-5 apiece in the semi-final, but the weather had deteriorated so oft that the referee deemed, that it was unsafe to play the extra time. And then they had that replay with Mungret St. Paul's early this week, and again it went to extra time. And they seem to have the capacity to dig out. And you must remember, and we spoke earlier about semi-finals, getting to semi-finals direct can be sometimes a poison chalice, but certainly it seems to have worked in the Gales' favour.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Matt. I'm going to go Celtic Gales to win by a solitary point because, as you said, they've been able to grind out victories. Maru might be the more formed team over the course of the entire championship, but I think Celtic Gales have that momentum, as you said. I'm going to go by the minimum 1 point Celtic Gales to get back-to-back promotions. And then in the senior final, I'm going to stick with Monaghan to make it 3 on the bounce. I'm going to go 4 points. Monaghan know how to win, whether it's football or it's Camogie, Newcastle West. That group of players know how to win. They don't lose very often in either code. And in the Gaelic grounds, they've excelled in recent years. Thinking back to that final in 21 against Bellalanders, they seem to enjoy that open space. So I'm going to go with Monaghan 4-point winners. And
I'm going Monaghan by 3, actually. As you said, they know how to win big games, like the wide open spaces of the Gaelic grounds. You must have remembered that in terms of personnel, they have 7 of the squad that were on Graham Shine's All-Ireland squad this year. And they've a couple of more All-Ireland medal winners in Kate Geary and Katrina Davis, who were All-Ireland medal winners in 2018. Now, they're down Laurie O'Connor from last year, who was a big loss, of course, but they certainly have the know-how. Now, the only caveat that I would put in is, and I think they have played down very well, talk of 3 in a row. Because that in itself would bring a certain amount of pressure, but I've heard very, very little about it. Actually, during the course of the campaign, and certainly in the lead up to the final, and I doing the preview and all, there was very, very little. It's the like of you and me are doing more talking about it than Monaghan, I think. And of course, they have a little secret weapon this year, Jack. Monaghan have a little secret weapon. There's a certain Billy Lee among their backroom team.
Yeah.
Need we say any more?
No, that's handy to
and it is the Billy Lee.
Yeah, where Billy goes, success invariably follows. So he'll be hoping to add a senior football title to the many titles he's won with Newcastle and Limerick over the last few years. But those are our games for the weekend, Matt. Just before we finish up, just a small announcement regarding myself. Anyone that knows me will know that while you're going to Goodison Park this Saturday, the following Saturday, I'll be on a plane over to Malaysia to move to Australia. So I'll be on holidays for about 2 weeks, and then I'll be in Australia. So it was the decision made a while ago. So it will affect the pod for a couple of weeks at least. But once I get my feet over in Australia, we'll continue the pod from across the waters, as long as one of us left you up very early in the morning and one of us will probably late at night. But yeah, myself and Kira are moving to Australia. Probably a bit of a cliche now for our age group to be going across the water, but if we don't do it now, we'll never do it. So we have another episode next week, Matt, that I'll be with you for, but it'll be just some sort of juggling done for the next 2 or 3 weeks after that. But thanks to everyone that knows and is wishing me the best of luck. I could be home very soon, or I might be home for a long time, but I'll be definitely coming home to Ballysteen at some stage. There'll be no fear of that. But yeah, for anyone wondering, I am immigrating, so that's down the line. But we've another podcast left to go through if anyone has any queries, and if anyone in Sydney has accommodation or a bit of work, those are 2 things I have not started yet. So that would be very, very handy. If anyone out there has contacts in either place, I would really appreciate that. Or Matt, you were already on to me about someone before we started, so I know there's a lot of goodwill from people. But yeah, just a small announcement for anyone that was wondering what was going to happen. We'll keep going through, but there might be a small break or someone will take over from me for the next 2 weeks. But as I said, we'll be recording next week. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say to that, Matt, or if you...
I certainly do, Jack. When I got the first inkling that it was going to happen about 6 months ago, I think it's in the ether with nearly 6 months. My first reaction was one of devastation, because we've set up or struck up such a good partnership for over 200 podcasts together, you know, at least. And but it was tempered a bit when you told me a week or two ago that you would be possibly away for a couple of weeks, and hopefully that you would be continuing the podcast from Australia. But Jack, whatever way it pans out, I want to wish you the very, very best of luck. You and Ciara, every good wish on your trip to Australia, and I want to say a profound and deep thanks to you for the wonderful, wonderful times we've had together. And I will certainly miss you on the podcast for the couple of weeks. I hope with all my being that you will be back in 2 to 3 weeks' time. But I certainly will miss the banter on the days that we meet at matches, because you to me are the king of the ball hoppers. But we've had great times, and hopefully we will have more. But in this particular podcast, I will look. I know we're going to be on next week, but I will be looking forward to when you will be back. But Jack, whatever life throws up to you in Australia, I hope for you and Ciara that it will be all the very best. I cannot wish you enough good wishes in what you've chosen to do, and hopefully, of course, Jack, before I depart this world, that you will be back in Ireland. But certainly it is the type of thing that young people of your age group are doing now, and doing so in greater numbers for experience and for life experience, and for the most part, I'm happy to say that in the Ireland that we're living in today, that most people are doing it by choice rather than by compulsion. So again, Jack, I want to wish you every good wish. I'm looking forward to our chat next week, and hopefully a couple of weeks on, and we will be back from down under. You'll be back from down under. But if anyone is wondering who's going to get up early in the morning, I can tell you it's somebody from Ballysteen. They're early risers down there, so I'd hate to interrupt that.
Yeah, thanks for your kind words, first and foremost, Matt. I do appreciate them. We'll be back next week anyway to keep going with this podcast for as long as we can. It's been very enjoyable. I look forward to it every week. We've a lot of memories in the bank, either on the podcast or at the matches. And I'll miss seeing you at the games. I won't miss seeing or going down for a cup of tea with you at the Gaelic Crowns, and it takes an hour because of everyone stopping you. But that's part and parcel of going to the games in the Gaelic Crowns. But as I said, we'll be back next week to run through all that, and we'll work out times. I'm not really a great early morning riser, but maybe I'll have to across the water. And if anyone from Michael Cusack...
Is something you could cultivate, Jack?
Maybe. If anyone from Michael Cusack is watching and they need a water boy or a part-time selector or something like that, definitely I'll be more than willing to cut my cloth over. But for now, Matt, as I said, we have another podcast next week, so we can get into more logistics next week. For now, we have loads of games this weekend to look forward to. We have the quarterfinals in the men's senior and intermediate football championships. We have the finals in the ladies football championship. We're down to the semis and finals and all the other grades nearly at this stage. So it's a very exciting time. Probably a mad time to leave, but sure, that's where we are. But to you, as always, Matt, thank you very much for your contribution. For everyone watching at home and contributing and commenting, really appreciate it. Try to get back to everything. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, give a comment if you want. Same on Facebook, on Twitter. Make sure to like, retweet, all that good stuff. This has been episode 253 of the Tree Talk podcast. Thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon, Matt.
Thanks, Jack.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
If your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence, you can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the work out today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the
no sympathy in this game for